Hello, hello out there. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to be back. And congratulations, 40 years. Wow, what a wonderful occasion to celebrate this year. So before we get started, could I just see with a show of hands, how many of you believe in miracles? Good. Yeah, a miracle is defined as an extraordinary event that manifests with divine intervention. With divine intervention into human affairs. And I grew up as the last of 10 kids in Hawaii. You may have heard that if you were here last time I was here. And I got a chance to be exposed to some pretty interesting miracles while I was growing up. I'm the last of 10 children. And my older brothers and sisters, I heard my father and mother call them hellions every now and then. Yeah. And they got into some really severe car accidents. I mean, I looked at the wreckage as a little kid and thought, how in the world did they survive? But they walked away without a scratch. It was a miracle. And I used to body surf a lot, if any of you know that sport. But as a teenager, I used to body surf. And as teenagers go, what do? We think we're immortal, right? And so I would take off on waves that were giant. And one day I had an accident, and I broke my back. Doctor said it was a miracle. It was a miracle that I wasn't paralyzed for life. And in Hawaii, we had giant storms, and natural disasters. And, my heart goes out to your community and the extended area for the fires and what's happened. I mean, it's just devastating. And we had some of those situations when I was growing up, and it was a miracle that some of our friends' homes were left standing when there was complete devastation all around them. It was a miracle. And even our family priest, yes, we had a family priest. He had been diagnosed with terminal cancer and given 6 months to live. A month later, he went back to the doctor and was completely cured. It was a miracle. How many of you know someone or have experienced something that you would call a miracle in your life? Yeah. A miracle is defined as an extraordinary event that manifests with divine intervention into human affairs. Now, if we believe our philosophy that we're all part of one, we're all part of divine mind, we're all part of that one energy and spirit, that creative force in the universe, then it stands to reason that we can enable more miracles to happen in our lives. We can use divine intervention and the practice of spiritual tools that we learn in centers like this one to enable more miracles to happen more often. Miracles can simply become typicals for you. What do you think? Yeah? Yeah. This talk that I'm going over is a takeoff on what I did for the Path to Wealth. And I was introduced with this understanding that I use a spiritual partnership, and I just happen to give God, Spirit, Divine Intelligence a title. As a CEO of companies, I surround myself with people who I give titles to, like chief financial officers and whatnot. And so I decided to give God a title. I call it the Chief Spiritual Officer, or CSO for short. And it's been my belief as I travel around the world speaking and teaching on these principles is that as we use what's taught in centers like this on a regular basis, we can enable more miracles, more extraordinary events, more good, as Emma Curtis Hopkins calls it, to manifest in our life. In 1994, I shared with you last time I was here, in 1994, I proved that. I've proved it many times. And if you've read any of my books, There are lots and lots and lots of stories of miraculous events happening, extraordinary events with divine intervention into human affairs. But in 1994, one of my goals that I was writing about every single day was that I was so grateful that I had good health, and lots of flowery ways to describe that good health. And I found myself in a business meeting, and I had this very strong thought of my sister's face in my mind's eye. Has anybody ever had a strong thought just pop into your head? Could that be divine intervention? Well, I chose to believe that it was. And so I knew that that meant I needed to contact my sister. So I stopped by her office, and she was so happy to see me. She had a computer problem that I could fix for free. And as I'm sitting there at her desk working on her problem, she noticed this little tiny dot on the outside of my right leg. And she said, "What is that?" Well, I told you I'm from Hawaii, and I'm fair. I have a lot of freckles. And so that's what I told her it was. It was just this teeny little dot that I've had forever. I can't even remember not having this little teeny dot. So I told her it was a freckle, and she said she didn't feel that it was a freckle. And would I go and see her dermatologist to have it looked at? Well, how many of you have really busy schedules? Yeah, and I was right in the thick of things. I mean, I stopped by her office, and I'm almost late for the next appointment. I've got 50 million things I've got to do. Go to a dermatologist, are you kidding me? Especially when I know that there's nothing wrong. And I was just about to tell her, don't worry, I'm fine. I've always had that dot. And my gut hurt. Anybody ever have your gut hurt? Divine intervention into human affairs. So I knew, having practiced this a while, that meant I needed to just do what she said. So I made the appointment, all the while justifying that if it's probably a good idea for me to establish a relationship with a dermatologist anyway, right? So I go to the appointment. The doctor says, "May, it's nothing. It's too small. It can't possibly be anything. Go home, honey. Don't worry. You're going to be fine." And my gut hurt again. Wow. Divine intervention into human affairs. And courage to go up against a doctor's advice. So I said, "Doctor, look, I really don't mean to be disrespectful, but you need to cut that off and have it diagnosed." I came back a week later to a diagnosis of cancer. Malignant melanoma, Clark's level 3. Divine intervention into human affairs. Here's the miracle in this story. Because it was caught so early, I only had to have simple surgery. I didn't have to have any additional treatment. I have not had any recurrence of cancer since then. Divine intervention into human affairs, a miracle. We can do some things. I'm just helping you today to remember what you already know. We can do some things on a regular basis to enable more miracles, more opportunities to achieve our good. And our good, as Emma Curtis Hopkins calls it, can be perfect health, where every cell in your body is filled with healthy light. It could be harmonious relationships with family, friends, coworkers, communities. It could be increased finances and financial freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want. Great recreation. Life, wonderful work where you feel fulfilled and satisfied in using your skills and talents in remarkable ways. You can have more of your good if you do a few things to enable miracles to happen for you. Now, being the self-proclaimed efficiency expert that I am, if you'll look in your bulletin, you'll see a one-page form, looks just like this. And this is your cheat sheet. You get to take these notes home with you. So what I want to do is share 3 points with you today to help you to enable more miracles to manifest in your life, to turn miracles into typicals. If you don't have one of those, raise your hand, and maybe one of the ushers could bring you one. Is there an usher back there that can? Oh, thank you so much. All right, well, the first point is that repetition reaps rewards. Say that with me. Repetition reaps rewards. One of my very favorite authors is a woman named Florence Scovel Shinn. She published a little book in 1925 called The Game of Life and How to Play It. Has anybody read that before? Okay. I like to consider Florence Scovel Shinn Emma for Dummies. She makes it really simple to understand these principles. Really simple. So with what she said is that we can't always control our thoughts, but we can control our words. And through repetition, we impress the subconscious mind and can then be masters of anything. And guess what? You all have proved this. How many of you can tell me that you have driven home from work or driven home from someplace that you go often, and you don't remember large parts of your drive home? Anybody? Right. So through repetition, you've mastered the situation. Were any of you experts the first time you learned to drive a car? No. You had to put in lots of mental and physical concentration and effort to be able to do that. And if you're like me and you learned on a standard stick shift, oh my gosh, you had to put in a lot of mental effort praying that you didn't pop the clutch and stall the car on a hill, right? And what about learning to read? You sounded out each letter, and you put it into a word, and you put it into a sentence, in a paragraph, in a story. That took a lot of repetition and mental and physical effort to do that. But now can't you just skim entire pages and get the same understanding? You've mastered the situation with repetition. And don't even get me started on that crazy keyboard learning how to type. It's not even in alphabetical order. My God. And now can't you, and maybe even some of your kids and grandkids, can't you type faster than you can talk sometimes? You've mastered the situation. And how about learning to ride a bike? I didn't have the luxury of training wheels. My brothers, who I have 6 right above me in age, thought it would be really fun to teach me by just sending me off on the bike. Yeah, I crashed a lot. But through repetition and practice, I mastered the situation. And like you, I can probably go for years without getting on a bike and then get back on and remember how to balance on the bike, right? See, you've already proved that repetition reaps rewards. And as I've been around the world teaching principles, spiritual principles, what I recognize is that we can use repetition in spiritual principles to reap rewards as well. Success is not a secret reserved for only a few people. Success is a system. And you have been exposed to many, many systems. In religious organizations, what do? We pray without ceasing. We chant. We use the 5-step treatment process. We do some things on a repetitive basis, and we accumulate proof that we're going to be successful. In business, managers create goals. And usually those goals are projections for the future. We're looking at what is next month, what is next quarter, what is next year going to produce. And when we succeed, we accumulate proof that the way that we've generated these projections, these future states that we're constantly living in, we've accumulated enough proof and expertise that we can now project with great confidence. Right? And any musicians or athletes out there? Got a musician here, okay? What do you do on a daily basis? You mentally train, you physically train, you practice to perform at your highest levels. I love professional athletes because what they'll say is that they spend just as much time mentally practicing. They see themselves in the match, in the game, performing at their highest levels just as much as they do physically practicing. That's why they are at the top of their game. What I write about in my books is systems from all of these different areas. And I boil them down to a little 25 to 30 minute daily practice to partner with Spirit so that we can enable more of our good to show up in our lives. All of us can do this. The second point is, well, right before we get to the second point, in that daily practice, I want to point out a very, very key component, and that is your words. How many of you believe that your words are powerful? Okay, right. So using the right words, have you ever heard somebody say, I don't want something, and then it shows up? Or how about people that say, I want to lose 10 pounds, or I want to be financially free? Ever hear that? Well, think about those words for a minute. I mean, really think about them. If the goal is to be wanting to lose or wanting to be debt-free, haven't they already achieved their goal? Aren't they already wanting? No, I'm serious about this. So shifting your words to describe what it is that you want, your good, in any area of your life, shifting your words to describe it as though it's already done with gratitude is one of those keys to enable both your subconscious and this spiritual gift of intuition to show up and point the way. So instead of saying, I want to lose 10 pounds, you would say, I'm so grateful that I am physically fit, trim, toned, energetic, in this healthy, pain-free body that easily moves through life. Or if you want to be financially free, I'm so grateful that I am now financially free with all of the money and resources that I need to live a wonderful life filled with all of my giving expenses taken care of, all of my living expenses taken care of, and all of my fun and more. See the difference? So choosing the right words as part of this spiritual practice is very, very key. Your words have power. The second point is to recognize that you've come to this stage in your life with a lot of beliefs and behaviors, okay? You've accumulated a ton of beliefs and behaviors over time. And one of those beliefs and behaviors has to do with achieving goals. If you believe that achieving your good is possible, spiritual intuition is going to show up and help guide you towards that. Just like I knew that perfect health was possible. And spiritual intuition showed up as gut instincts, strong thoughts, okay? But what about those goals that are bigger than anything that you've achieved before, or different than anything that you've achieved before, that you don't really believe are possible? How do we achieve those? Well, the first is to recognize how you're wired, how your brain is wired. Your brain remembers every single time you had a goal in the past that you didn't achieve. And it remembers how disappointed you were. And it loves you. And it doesn't want you to be disappointed. So if your brain doesn't believe that you think it's possible for you to achieve something, guess what it does? It puts spirit on mute. Spirit is still trying to send those messages, but your brain, in an effort to protect you because it loves you, puts those messages on mute until you do something to shift the beliefs. The other thing is everything in you, if you don't believe it's possible and you're doing this practice every day, proclaiming with gratitude that it's already done and you really don't believe it's possible, guess what you're going to feel like? A fraud. You're going to feel like a fraud so that you'll abandon the goal and go back to where it's comfortable. You may be in a situation that you don't like at all, but you know how to cope. It's known. It's not scary. So this muting and this pulling you back to a place where you know how to cope is not uncommon. It's normal. But you can move through that. And one of the ways that you do that is through this repetition and making what you want familiar and welcome. So I have a friend of mine who is the last of her family, and she was born well after her older siblings, okay? And her grandparents, her parents, and even her oldest sibling were diagnosed with diabetes, okay? They were diagnosed with diabetes. And, oh, sweetheart, let's all pray. They're there. Sweet, sweet thing. Okay, so they were diagnosed with diabetes, and she was told her entire life, you are going to have diabetes. You need to just prepare for it. It's hereditary. There's nothing you can do about that. And she took a workshop from me, the Path to Wealth workshop, and she said, I don't want diabetes. I don't want that. I said, great. Use your daily practice, and let's describe what your beautiful, whole, healthy, and complete life is. And so she was doing that. Well, short time later, she came to me, and she said, May, I feel like a fraud. I mean, if I'm predestined, if science is saying that I'm going to have diabetes, how in the world can I avoid it? And I said, do you believe that all things are possible with God? Well, yeah. Do you believe that other people have been miraculously healed? Yeah. Great. Go find those stories. Go find those stories. Go meet some people that have received diagnosis or had hereditary ailments that they've been successfully able to overcome or avoid. Start to learn about these people. Make their success familiar to you. So she did that. As she started to accumulate more of these stories and these examples, what was happening is a neural pathway in her brain was starting to grow that was associated with the belief in her being able to be healthy. Once her brain said, aha, you believe that it's possible. It's up to God to figure out the how, okay? But you believe it's possible. Guess what her brain did? Took spirit off mute. And all these intuitive directions were coming at her, and some of those directions led her to get involved with this group. And they had a blast. They would cook together. They would go out and hike and walk and all sorts of things. And several months later, she found that she was 40 pounds lighter. She went to her doctor's appointment, and the doctor said, if you keep up with this, there is no reason that you will ever be diagnosed with diabetes. To her, that was a miracle, a miracle. You can do this too. The third and final point is that you have to take action. You welcome your good, and you have to take action. Had she not followed the action to go get involved with these people, had she not made what she wanted familiar and welcome, had I not taken action and gone to the dermatologist, my good would not have manifest. So you have to take action as Spirit leads you, all right? Now, the way that you do that is, of course, shift your beliefs to possibility by reading about other people's stories, and then let Spirit guide you for the next steps. One of my friends is a realtor in San Diego, and when he decided he wanted to become a successful realtor, he got his license, he hung it at a broker's office, and about 8 months later, he came to me and he says, I'm giving up. This sucks. I hate it. I've had very few clients that have run me ragged over the last 8 months. I could make more money and have more fun working at a Starbucks. Seriously. And I said, well, are you doing your daily practice? Are you doing repetition reaps reward? Have you decided to describe what your wonderful life is like with the perfect clients and making the kind of money that you want? He said, well, no. I said, okay, you got to do that. And have you met other successful realtors and learned about their journeys? You know, from when they had nothing to becoming a successful realtor. And he said, well, no. I said, okay, well, you got to do that. So he did that over several months. And he started to believe, wow, you know, if they could do it, I could do it. There was nothing extraordinary about the way they began. In fact, I've been given even more. I have more experience. And if they could be successful, I could be successful. He went out to networking events and Chamber of Commerce events and all sorts of places to meet these people. Once his belief shifted, spirit got taken off mute. And all of these intuitive directions came to him. And one of those was to create a presentation. He used to be a surfer, a professional surfer. He wasn't very good. I mean, he didn't rank very high, but he still did it. And he knew lots of other successful professional surfers. And so he got this idea. It was almost like a movie was played out in his head about creating a 1-hour presentation with video clips of surfing and cameo appearances from his friends that were still surfers, and put this together in an hour-long presentation and offer it for free to surf shops and corporations that had executives who surfed in the San Diego area. So he did that. He took action and put that together. He was a huge hit. He's a nice guy. You would all love him. He was such a huge hit. He made friends that he got to go surf with. He met all sorts of different kinds of people that had friends that needed real estate help. In fact, the word executive in San Diego means you actually have some money. And all of these people ended up liking him and giving him tons of referrals. And I'm happy to tell you that he not only met his first goal, his first financial goal, he has met 2 larger ones since. To him, that was a miracle, an extraordinary event that happened with divine intervention into human affairs. All of us have the power to use God power, to allow spirit to guide us to achieve what Emma Curtis Hopkins calls our good. And I do not have time today. I'm so sorry. But if you'll be able to stay for the workshop, we're going to have a lot of fun. But I don't have time today to go over all 7 of the steps in the gratitude formula. But we're going to have a wonderful interactive workshop this afternoon at 12:30. Everybody gets a 27-page workbook. It's really fun. You get to actually practice all of these steps and be well equipped to begin manifesting more miracles in your life. May you be blessed. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be prospered. And as Emma Curtis Hopkins says, there is a good for you, and you ought to have it. And I would add that you should have it now. Thank you so much.